Hi Booktube, it's Peg here at the History Shelf, back again to do one more tag. Kind of been doing a lot of tags lately, but feel very grateful to be tagged in a few of these. So this is the 28 more random questions tag that originally was an older Steve Donahue tag, and then Jason Harrigan at Byways In Bookland regenerated it, brought it back to life, as it were, and I was tagged afresh by by Jason. So let's do this, shall we? Question number 1, and mind you, these are 19 questions. It says 28 more random questions, but it's a long story, I guess. So anyway, number 1: how old is your oldest living relative? I really have no idea. My family is very scattered, and my grandparents, both sets of my grandparents have passed on. So the oldest living relative, I'm not going to name any names, but yeah, I have no idea. Number 2: as an adult, have you ever been in a fight? And I'm going to say no. Number 3: have you ever been slapped in public? Okay, these are very strange questions. No, I have not. Number 4: what's the largest non-human animal you've seen in person? So I think at the zoo, probably elephant would be a fair guess. So okay, question 5: have you ever had serious surgery? I've had surgery. I wouldn't call it serious. It was definitely outpatient, but I don't know if there's a question about here about pain, but I can say that I had a spinal tap. How many people can say that? You know what? People say that, oh, it's so painful. It was actually durable. The spinal headaches that came afterwards were brutal. Those were by far the worst ever. Even worse than my original migraine that sent me to the ER. So, yeah. Let's see. Okay, so the question number 6 seems to be very personal on Steve's part. If you could only compare the novels of Cormac McCarthy to one kind of garbage, what kind would it be? Wow, guess he's not a fan. Honestly, I haven't read any Cormac McCarthy, so I couldn't answer that. I couldn't answer what kind of garbage that would be. Maybe it wouldn't be, garbage necessarily. Number 7: who'd be your dream casting for Superman? You know, when I was a little girl, I loved Superman. I am not a fan of superhero movies as an adult. But I grew up with the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and frankly, I think he's just the best there will ever be. I'm looking off camera to see if... No? Oh, she does agree with me. Okay. Yes. Martine's over here like, She knows her superheroes. Anyway, Christopher Reeve... Is it Reeve or Reeves?
Reeve.
Reeve. I was right the first guess, yeah. Christopher Reeve, to me, he's always going to be the only Superman there ever was and ever should be. So that's my answer for that. Oh, there was a question on here about the greatest amount of, question 8, what's the greatest amount of physical pain you've ever been in? So I've been in a car accident when I was 24, I think, and I was in the back seat. And mostly my knee got banged up, so that wasn't too bad. But I had a migraine for the first time in my life in 2016, and again, that's what took me to the emergency room, and they wanted to run a bunch of tests and scans on my brain and do the spinal tap because I'd never had any history of migraines, so they wanted to make sure there was nothing more serious going on there. But yeah, that migraine, wow, that floored me. But then after the spinal tap, the lady said, you're going to have these spinal headaches. which basically you're okay if you're lying down. The next day I tried to go to work, and I drove to work, and I know I shouldn't have driven to work. I should have turned right around. As soon as I got to work, I had to find a couch in like our foyer area, and I just laid there and I texted my boss because I couldn't even walk to my desk. And I was like, well, I'm here, but I'm laying on a couch in the foyer because I can't. When I stand up, it felt like an elephant sitting on my head. It was brutal. So yeah, migraines can be a real bitch. Whew. But that spinal tap, that'll throw you for a loop. Okay, question 9. Do you believe in a god or gods? Yes, I believe in a god, one god. I am a Christian. I was baptized Lutheran, though I'm not confirmed. So that's my affiliation, if you want to call it that. But mostly I just identify as Christian. Number 10. Have you ever been good and properly drunk? Well, yeah. Actually, I've been good and improperly drunk. That's sorry. I laugh at my own jokes sometimes. I'm the only one. So yeah, that was a while ago. I actually have been sober for about 17 years. I don't drink anymore. I sowed all those wild oats in my 20s. So, question 11. To the best of your knowledge, what's the closest you've ever come to death? So I was in the Air Force back in the 90s, and we were flying from Omaha, Nebraska to one of our distributed units, Air Force units in Saudi Arabia. But along the way, we were stopping at different locations. We stopped in England, then we flew to Crete the next day, which was amazing. And then immediately overnight, we took off and flew to Riyadh. But on the flight over to England, I was flying in this big transport plane, so it wasn't comfortable. You're basically sitting in a jump seat, which is basically 2 bars attached to the fuselage, and there's these big cargo crates right in front of you, so you can't really stretch out your legs. You can only lay on this little narrow bench that has some like webbing over it, right? And a webbing for your back, so you're not hitting the fuselage. Anyway, it's very uncomfortable, but so flying over the Atlantic at some point, we hit some turbulence, and I was pretty much kissing my butt goodbye at that point. I was like, okay. We were hitting turbulence, and then the plane was like going like down. It's like going down like that, and I was like, oh my god. It actually was like 2 nightmares in one for me, because I've always had a nightmare of being attacked by a shark and eaten by a shark, and being in a plane crash, or dying in a plane crash. So when this was happening, we were over the Atlantic. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm getting a 2-for-1 right now, because knowing my luck, the plane will crash into the sea. I'll somehow survive it, and then a shark will come along and take me out. So, yeah, I was pretty sure we were gonna die, but these guys flying the plane were like, oh, we got a little turbies, buckle up, and I'm like, we're gonna die, but we didn't. So anyway, question 12. Which Star Trek character would the person who knows you best compare you to? Okay, so at first I didn't have an answer for this, but I asked someone who knows me pretty well, and we came back with Captain Picard for a couple of reasons. First is, Captain Picard really loves his tea, and so does this gal right here. Loves his Earl Grey, and he likes it hot. Also, he's fond of the "make it so," and apparently so am I. Apparently so am I with the honeydew list. I'll make it so. Go do that. I need that done. So that's great. Yeah, Captain Picard. Question 13. Have you ever had your life radically changed by a book? So, I mean, yes, and I think I've answered or spoke about this in one of my other tags, but I would say the first time I really studied and read the Bible, it had an impact on my life. And the New Testament, to be precise, the Gospels, had a very a radical change for me. Oh, I don't know if I answered this next one. Question 14, is there a universally beloved classic you simply don't like? I know there's an answer. I have an answer, and I'll probably think of it later. I mean, I liked Dickens. I think it might have been a Dickens novel that I didn't like as much as everyone else. Like, I can say that I think so far, I haven't read all of Dickens' novels, but Great Expectations is one of my favorites. I think it is my favorite. Oliver Twist, maybe not so much. But I can't really say that there's any classics that I can't really answer this one. So I'm just going to move on. Question 15, what is your dream profession? Well, you know, I'd like to say that I'm kind of living the dream right now. I write, and for a living, I'm a copywriter, and I also get to do some copy editing, and I enjoy that. If I could expand on that a bit more and move into editing or working with galleys on books and proofreading or copy editing those, I would love that. I'm also writing book reviews right now, which I love. So that's all part of it, just being a writer and an editor. So I'm really kind of there. Just want to add a few more things, you know, to my profession to really just hit all those buttons. So I can't complain. Question 16. Is there an entire genre of reading you're bugged you haven't fully explored? No. I don't, well, yes, maybe. I'd like to read a little more in the natural sciences area. History is my passion, biography, current events, nonfiction, political science, stuff like that. But I do want to work the other part of my brain when it comes to understanding like the universe. I want to get a couple of books on, like, I've seen people showing just the classics like Cosmos by Carl Sagan. You know, I would like to read that. I mean, I should read that. So I think, you know, things about relating to natural sciences, in space, astronomy, I hope to get into that. I need to. So I need to make plans for that. Reading goals, as they call them in this little community we have here. Okay, so question 17. This was a great question. When you people watch, what's the main thing you notice? I watch to see how if people smile. And an extension of that is, are they being kind? You know, are they behaving kindly to the people they're interacting with? But I mostly look for a smile. That's the first thing I notice. And I try to stray away from those that, people who give you a fake smile. Tell me about this. I'll start talking about my neighbor. You know, those fake smiles where it's just like, hey. You know, oh my God, it's psychotic. You just don't, it's like, what is wrong? You know? So genuine smiles, kindness, that's what I look for. Okay, so question 18. Barring the unforeseeable, what's the most likely way you'll die? That's a little morbid. The first thing that came to mind actually wasn't plane crashes or shark attacks, but I think it'll be cancer. I think it just takes most of us. It's a strange question, I know. I've got an audience over here, and she's like, boo, boo. We don't like this question. We don't like this question. Yeah, I know, but it's like I feel like I need to answer it. Cancer. I mean, I've had a lot of family members die from different cancers, and I think that it's probably the way. Anyway, very, very morbid question. Number 19. Have you visited any of the world, ancient or modern? So, as far as the world goes, we'll go back to that Air Force story. So, the only places I've been overseas have been England, for a very short time. We went to RAF Mildenhall, that Air Force base there. Interviewed a few people. I was a journalist for the base newspaper, so I basically just got there, unpacked my bags. At the time I was in my 20s, so I went down to the pub there, had some Stellas. It was great. Next day I was up walking around base trying to find these people and interview them and write stories for our newspaper back at my base in Omaha, off at Air Force Base. Woo! And then we flew from Mildenhall to Crete, because we had another like unit out there. Oh, no, we didn't. That was just a layover on the way to Riyadh. But however, we landed in Crete, and I really wish we had stayed more, like, longer, but it was just a layover to, you know, refuel the plane, check out the parts, all this kind of stuff. But we had a wonderful dinner, and our hotel was at the top of this little mountain, and we looked down on this village, and the sun was setting over the Mediterranean, and I just remember thinking in the back of my mind, I was like, wow, this is what the ancient Greeks saw, you know. So I wish I had more time to explore the ruins, to drive to Knossos, and if I'm mispronouncing that, oh well, you know what I'm saying. But yeah, so, and I've seen Crete, and then I've been to Saudi Arabia. And I was there the longest out of all of those 3 locations, unfortunately. I didn't really care for it. So we had a layover there, and I was interviewing people there. But I remember it was so jarring because when I got off the plane, first of all, the heat hit you in the face like a 2x4. It was just, you know, literally, the cliche was true. It was like you stepped into an oven when those cargo doors opened. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Who can live here? And you constantly had to have a bottle of water in your hand because you would dehydrate within like 30 minutes or something. It was something crazy. It's like it just sucked all of the moisture out of your body. And the place that the American service people were staying was not on the base because it was actually a Saudi Arabian Air Force base. So American servicemen and women stayed off base at a little village that were like these abandoned villages. They weren't abandoned, they were built for the Bedouins because the government wanted the nomadic people, the Bedouins, to use them because they just didn't want all these people like tenting around. But, you know, they're nomads, and they're like, we're not staying in these homes, you know. So they were not used. So to get there, I had to, you know, they had to drive me there. So the Air Force guy who was there, he's like, I'll take you, and, you know, just put your bags in. So it was just me and him, and I go to get into the front seat with him, and he's like, no, I'm sorry. He's like, you have to sit. And he's pointing at the back seat, and I'm like, I was just confused. I'm like, what do you? He goes, I'm sorry. He goes, it's their rules, it's their culture. It's not me saying this. He's like, but women can't ride up front with a man. I was like, oh yeah. So I forgot about all that. So got in the back seat. Of course, I'm in uniform. I'm in my camouflage, and I remember riding off base and just seeing the Saudi Arabian guards there. Just, oh boy, they just looked at me with utter hatred. It was very surreal and freaky. So they drove me, and we got to the village, and I stayed there. But yeah, I saw some things there that was kind of nuts. Oh, we were driving on the what they call like a highway, and people were flying by us in these white pickups, and I saw it again. It was such a culture shock. You know, you think that's a turn of phrase, but it really felt real. This white pickup just flew by us, and I looked over to my left, and it was a man driving, and he had like a goat and some other animal in the front seat with him, and a woman in a habaya, head to toe. She was huddling in the open pickup in the back. So the animals were worth more than she was. Okay, so yeah. And I would call that ancient. I call that very crazy. Anyway, that's just my take on that, and that's my experience. So anyway, yeah, that's the last question, and on the 28 more random questions tag. Thank you guys very much for your time. It's another 20 minutes in, and I'm going to make another quick video with a couple of used books that I got recently, and just do a quick nonfiction November check-in on my progress. So until then, I will talk to you guys soon. Okay, bye.